Hey, Year 12. Okay, this is our review of the 25 mark question that you did for the assessment. Most of you, if not nearly all, did the question with the statement, MPs are purely lobby fodder for their political party. Analyse and evaluate this statement. Let's consider first of all the mark scheme. We should be aiming for at least level 4. Okay, there are 5 levels in total. Level 4 will give us a mark somewhere between 16 and 20. What we're looking for there is accurate knowledge and understanding of relevant political concepts. They should be coming within the answer as you write. The analysis is balanced and developed, so what we should be doing there is ensuring that as we write different sections, we're considering the counter arguments that exist within them. You should be looking to support your arguments with examples, and then you should be having evaluations which lead to the conclusions that you will bring at the end. So you should have really judgments over every section that you write. It asks for relevant perspectives that are being evaluated. Well, if you raise an assertion at the start of every section, you discuss that assertion, you are by that very nature discussing and evaluating relevant perspectives. Okay, let's get into it. So we start with the introduction. You should have a short introduction, probably around 60 words, which sets up the question. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you define the terms in the statement. You need to know what lobby fodder actually means, and you need to show that off in your introduction. So we're talking about the way in which the MP is considered to be controlled by the party and lacks independence. And then you want to introduce the present debate. Why is this statement being made? Is there something topically that you can bring into your introduction to show that it's a relevant issue? So, for example, you might talk about how MPs at the present time may be questioning about Brexit or questioning about COVID restrictions, and these kind of give us an example of why perhaps MPs aren't considered lobby fodder at this moment in time. An example from one of our students is shown at the bottom here, and it shows you how they've brought in an example at the beginning to show the topical nature of the debate. They've explained what lobby fodder is. And the only thing I would add is perhaps the sentence at the end, which is saying how important it is to evaluate MPs' capacity to act independently in a modern parliament, because that will lead you to allow a conclusion at the end to make that kind of judgment. Okay, so we're into our first section now. As I say, we want to raise a perspective, and the perspective would be MPs can be argued to be restricted in their actions due to the need to follow their party manifesto. So first of all, can you explain why this is important? And you need to explain that MPs are essentially elected by the constituents on a party label, that they have a manifesto that they campaign upon, and therefore the expectation, the moral duty, is for MPs to follow this through. You want to be able to give examples. The most recent election had Boris Johnson talking about the main issue is getting Brexit done. So you would expect that all Tory MPs, when elected, would be following that agenda and wouldn't be expected to move away from it. If we went back to Tony Blair's government in 1997, he came in with an agenda of constitutional reform, which his MPs were willing to follow because it was in the manifesto too. You want to show your balance though, and you want to have a kind of view. And the kind of view would be talking about issues where perhaps MPs be willing to diverge away from their parties on issues that aren't in the manifesto. During Tony Blair's administration, he brought in challenging issues such as tuition fees and foundation hospitals, which many in his party were against. So you can say that there are situations where MPs are willing to challenge. This was certainly the case with Tory MPs during Theresa May's government when she wanted to bring through the withdrawal bill, and they felt that their constituents' interests around Brexit meant that they could challenge this. So therefore, what's the end? Are MPs always restricted? Well, you should have a sentence at the end which brings it together. Do we feel that actually the party manifesto, because of its moral duty, means that in this situation, MPs are more likely to be slaves to the party, if you like to put it that way, and less willing, to actually challenge the party view. That needs to be there as your evaluative statement. Here's an example from one of our students, and you can see there nicely that they've written at the start the assertion that the party manifesto is important. Notice in purple the however and the unfortunately and the despite. These are lovely because what they do is they point where the argument is going. So it starts it up, it then changes direction, it then challenges that again, and at the end it brings together essentially an evaluation. So it has lots of those elements of level 4 moving into level 5. The synoptic element is shown by the discussion of PMQs, and the use of the terminology is shown by party whips. with an example of COVID-19. So overall, this paragraph is pretty effective in putting forward the view, but challenging the view and providing the balance that we're hoping for. Section 2. Okay, second assertion. MPs have been said to be too controlled by party discipline in their actions in Parliament. Okay, first of all, you'd have to explain what that means. When is party discipline seen? You can talk about that in divisions over legislation or motions. You can talk also about the way in which party discipline might be seen during Prime Minister's questions, when questions are planted for party benefit, or the work of MPs in public bills committees when they're expected to follow the party line in passing through legislation. You may also explain what the consequences are of challenging party discipline and the dangers of being deselected. So examples are important here. They sustain your argument, but then you want to be able to counter this by maybe explaining why an MP may rebel against their party. Again, we're into constituency issues which may be more important in the MP's eyes, certainly if they exist within a marginal constituency, than following the party line. This might be seen by issues such as the high-speed rail link, or the Heathrow third runway, or COVID in terms of an individual MP's perspective of their liberalism and how that goes against the policy that's being put forward by their party. So what's the evaluation in the end? How powerful do you think party discipline is? And certainly you may argue that it's career interest that actually makes an MP more willing to follow party discipline rather than follow perhaps their own conscience or their constituency interests in most cases. Here's another example for one of our students. Notice it's 300 words. It's probably a little wordy, I would argue, for that section. It could be cut down a little bit, but there are some great stuff here. First of all, we have the introduction at the beginning, which sets up this issue of voting against party decisions. And then what we have after that is a range of different arguments, which you can see where they, however, we can see with Jeremy Corbyn the example, and also with the WhatsApp group in terms of the how lockdown skeptics have been challenging the party view. The one thing I would change about this paragraph probably is the use of first person. It doesn't need to be there, and if you can avoid that, that would be ideal. Okay. Third section, and the assertion is MPs struggle to make an impact independently of their party. So first of all, can you explain what options are there in terms of how they're limited in scrutiny and legislation for individual MPs? Looking at examples of this or developing this a little bit further, you probably want to talk about private members' bills. The limitations of private members' bills, about how they can bring forward them, but also the limited success of private members' bills. You may also talk about their limited opportunity in PMQs to get forward a question that they want to put forward. So therefore, there are certainly limitations in terms of how an MP can act independently. You can counter that by talking about reforms that have happened more recently, which are trying to enhance the role of MPs within Parliament. You talk about the Backbench Business Committee and how that can provide greater forums by which MPs can discuss issues such as e-petition debates. The example of Hillsborough can be then to support that as well. You may also want to talk about other ways in which MPs have been enhanced in their role. The increasing media interest in select committees would be a factor within that. So there are arguments to say that perhaps MPs are getting greater opportunities to raise their voice in Parliament. But what's your judgment? What's the true potential of an MP to act independently? Remembering that in fact an MP is one of 650, and those chances are probably quite limited in the scheme of things, and it really happens more effectively within a broader party context. Here's another example, and it's interesting. We're around about 200 words for most of the sections we've shown, which are around about level 4, level 5 in their quality. First sentence sets it up, and then you have a discussion about the opportunities that do exist, select committees and private members' bills, which is good. Again, notice the word however as the argument turns. And then it talks also about the way in which rebellions can impact upon the example of the Blair administration in 2005. I slightly changed the terminology that was used in the however upon majority government is unlikely, and talk more recently about the fact that many governments recently have suffered from not having an effective majority. You could talk about the coalition government, you could talk about Theresa May, and how that's caused them some problems in regards to the independent actions of their MPs. So again, Looking at this paragraph, what you can see is good terminology, you can see examples, you can see balance, all of which suggests it's top level 4 moving into level 5. A good paragraph. Which takes us to our conclusions. Well, you need 3 elements in the conclusion. First of all, a judgment. What does the evidence suggest in regards to that statement? Do you agree or disagree that MPs are purely lobby fodder? 2, what are the issues, factors that challenge your judgment? You acknowledge those because that shows your balance and is also reflective of the essay that you've written. And 3, what are the priority points that support your judgment? So you're consistent to the discussion you've had so far. Now, this conclusion that was written by one of our students shows all 3 elements, perhaps not in the way in which I expected it, but still does the job. In essence, they say that if you were to kind of rephrase it, you go, in light of the evidence, it would seem that supporting party leadership and being lobby fodder is still the main focus of MPs. First sentence. Okay. Although MPs have opportunities in which to express their individual opinions, such as reforms that have existed or the desire to rebel against their party view when it hits their either conscience or their constituents' issues, this is not enough to challenge party discipline. And then you get to the end, the authority of party discipline, in addition to the expected support of the manifesto promises, are still the most important part of an MP's work and a reason why they can still be considered lobby fodder. Okay, so what do you do next? Well, for now, what I want you to go back is review your answer on OneNote and improve it. How can you improve the different sections you wrote? Did you write an effective introduction? Look at this section on the video again and see if you can improve it that way. Did you provide examples to support your answers, or was it a little bit limited in that? Was it clear balance? Did you go to one side and then the other within that? If you did, that's excellent. If you didn't, improve. Did you provide a clear judgment for each section? Where's your evaluation of what you've said? Did you use therefore as a trigger word to allow that to be seen by the reader? And did you have an effective conclusion which included the 3 things that I've mentioned? If you haven't, redo that. Okay, thank you very much.